Hello, good afternoon or good morning. My name is Pedro Rojas, and we are going to talk about water use and management. This is the class for the University Technological of Culiacan, and today we are going to talk about the agricultural irrigation method, which is gravity drip and sprinkler. First of all, the agricultural irrigation has an objective to stabilize the yields of the crops, also to reduce the internal variation, and we need to follow some steps. For example, the water availability and the quality of this, the crop demand is like the water balance, the quantity of water that the crops needs, and also we need to know about the soil characteristics, like a required flow and energy and irrigation system. This is the objectives that we need to obtain to have a very good agricultural irrigation. Talking about the water quality, these three elements of the water quality is salinity, sodicity, and toxicity. And these three elements have to avoid in the water of quality. Also, the hydric balance is because the water have some different ways to get to the crops. For example, the rain is is some of the more natural source of water for the crops, and also the soil water is located in the ground of the soil. Also, the water retention. This is according to the type of soil, and this determine the field capacity points. For example, the quantity of water that the soil can to storage for the use of the crops. And also the other element is the permanent wilt point, which is PMP, and is the part when the plants are unable to obtain the water from the soil. So there is another concept, evapotranspiration, which is the crop or the water of the crop need to have a good development. And the KC index, which is a unit that we obtain for make the schedule of the watering in the crops. This index is obtained for the FAO registers, and we are a multiplication for the evapotranspiration, and we obtain the quantity of water to apply in a crop. So of course there is limits to consider. The clay loam soils, this is up to 50% of the maximum of the capacity of the field. In sandy soils is up to 40% of the maximum of the capacity field. So the amount of water to irrigate is the difference of the soil water amount plus rain less the evapotranspiration. This is the quantity of water that all the crops need to have a good development. So talking about the ways to make a good irrigation in the crops, you need to apply the water in three different forms. One of them is the gravitational system, but it have a situation. The soil have to be a good leveling. Also, the slope should be less than 1.5%, and the irrigation efficiency in this system of irrigation is from 50 to 60%. This is very poor because the this kind of irrigation is the most easy to apply. In second place, we have the drip localized or drip irrigation system. This system don't require a leveling exactly because it depends on the line of the crops, and there is no problem with the difference in the soil. And the irrigation efficiency in this kind of irrigation system is of 80 to 90%. And there is by spraying system or watering like a rain. This is the spraying system. There is different equipment like a manual transport, and the irrigation efficiency is 70 to 80%. The roller barrel is an efficiency of 70 to 80%. Uh, Center pivot is also 90%, and the front advance is also irrigation efficiency by 90%. So the cost and efficiency of the most used irrigation system, in this case, we have some information that you can uh, check it up, and this in the site, which is the most useful system for your situation. Uh, this is the quantity of people is high in the first choice and is very low in the last choice. So this kind of numbers you can analyze and decide in function of the cost, in function of the efficiency, what is the better system for your farm. So in the case of gravity irrigation, this system of irrigation have its application in agricultural crops, like some crops like corn, uh, beans, wheat, different fruit trees, and legumbers. There is a lot of crops in this kind of irrigation system. This this kind of gravity irrigation, it depends on the water where you are using this irrigation system. In the water arid, you need to apply you are forced to apply the water. In the humid climate, is unnecessary. So it depends on the water of the situation, the kind of irrigation system. Irrigation by furrows, it is important to take account the length of the furrows because you have losses of water in the underground with the time that you are applying the water from the beginning to the end of the furrow, and there is a lot of water in the underground that you are losing. So it's very important to obtain different uh, you have to construct your furrows not too much of 200 meters of length to have a better distribution of the water in the farm. So this is a crop of maize which uh, which sex sowing in dry soil and germinated with the gravity irrigation system. You can see the water or the quantity of humid in the ground and small little plants that are beginning to grow from the soil. There is another automated irrigation by furrows. We have some tubes with some automatization, and you can apply the water in different valves in each of the furrows. Also, the second system in importance for the cost is the sprinkler irrigation system. And this kind of irrigation have application in different crops like a corn, wheat, and uh, different crops that you can apply this kind of irrigation system. There is an expression completely, and this is manual because you can obtain the tubes and get in the truck and move to different parts of the farm. Another equipment is the roller the roller barrel, which is this big equipment, and you can start watering the from the long distance, and this barrel is enrolling the line, and this is applying the quantity of water in this way to the barrel. So is uh, this roller barrel is one of the equipment with a better efficiency. This is most one of the most efficient festival in the Wasabe Mochis places here in Sinaloa. This is a frontal irrigation system with sprinklers. This is very expensive, the maintenance of this equipment, but this kind of irrigation is very useful for for some crops in the north of Sinaloa. The pivot central is like a advancing system, is the same structure. The difference is the way of the watering in the farm. This central pivot is like a raining on the crop. It's very useful in the corn and also in potato crops in the north of Sinaloa. So this is another picture of the potato crops. This equipment is very good for these crops. So another different imagine from the motor in the beginning of the structure, and you can see the connections here. So the last equipment or system for irrigation is the drip irrigation, and his application is in all the crops. First of all, in corn, beans, tomato, bell peppers, cucumbers, etc. There is some elements. There are elements that make up an irrigation equipment. An irrigation system is composed, first of all, for a water source, pressure unit, which is the energy to move the water into the crops. The filter unit, very important, and the percolation unit, tubes for transportation of the water, valve for a better distribution, and at the end, the drip or sprinkler to apply the water directly to the crop. Talking about the water sources, there is a different water sources like rivers, lakes, different systems that you can obtain the water to start your system. The second place is the motor or unit of applied water. These motors also are with electricity or only for gravity. You can put the water in the highest part of the farm, and this make a pressure that can apply the water with different level of height altitude in the farm. So this is the picture of the Hilema system. This is a very advanced drip irrigation system used in most of the agricultural zones here in Sinaloa. So to choose an irrigation programmer like Silema, you need to choose an irrigation controller with different characteristics. This should be considered the number of motors to control by the programmer, the number of irrigation sectors and their flow, the quantity of water that you need to apply to this sector. Also, you need to know the type of automatic valves and the access to available energy, because these motors are working by energy, and you need to have a good a good source of energy for the motors. Also, you need to take an account the type of irrigation schedule, which is or will which could be by time, by volume, by soil type, and or plant physiological status or by meteorological date. So it depends on this situation, the quantity of water or the number or start of the pump to apply the water. So the type of fertigation programming, which is by volume or by conductivity electricity, this is the quantity of fertilizer in the water applied for the crops. Also, you need to know the future equipment expansion that will be need or need to communication with the equipment. Nowadays, we are using the cell phone, for example, to start a irrigation system in some farm. This is another look for the picture of the irrigation system equipment. This is the dilemma, and this is the principal controller, programmer controller. This is the pump. This is the sector where you apply the water, and the different tanks for fertilizer. This is the filters, and this is the completely system of irrigation system. So this kind of irrigation have the capacity to get automation. So the components of an automatic irrigation control are sensor or traducers, which is tensiometer, pressure gauge, pressure switch, flow meters, level detectors, etc. Also the actuators, which are switches, solenoid belts, motorized bulbs, pumps, variable speed drives, electronic starter, etc. And the signal conditioner for the system to understand. You need to have some signal to start the pump or to start as a irrigation system. Also, the control unit is the most of the important things, which is the programmer, could be a computer, and this is the equipment that you make the quantity of waterings per day or quantity of time that you are starting the pump, for example. Also, you need electrical protection system because this is equipment very expensive, and to be sure to have communication system through the computer and local access to a programmer or remote access through the internet and or mobile telephony by messages. So in the unit of filtration, you have different uh, kinds of filters. In the sand filters, which is most of the common filters in the agricultural, they are used to separate organic materials such as algae and coarse particles, which is able because a thick layer of siliceous sand which contain the filters through the water pass and were filtered to use it for the equipment to apply to the crops. The hydrocyclone is a different filter system. They separate particles from the water through the effect of the centrifugal force generated by vortex. So the heavy particles such as sand and maybe contained in irrigation, so the water move toward the walls because the centrifugal vortex, and then fall into the tank, placed at the bottom of this tank, where are storage, the sand, and in the events to clean the system. They are used when you have to suspend the sands and appear in the well waters. Another kind of or another equipment of filters or kind of filter is the mesh filters. The water is filtered through a mesh, which is defined by the number of opening per liner, and this is a quantity of mesh for inch. So the particles larger than the mesh opening are trapped in the filter, and they are effective for slightly dirty water with different materials of inorganic particles. So this is useful for silt or sand. And the mesh filter are presented in three modes. Depending on the cleaning system, they have manual, semi-automatic, and automatic system. And the ring filters, this system has a set of grower rings that are compressed against each other, forming a cylinder or filter. So the water passes through the small grooves between the rings, and the particles larger than those of the grooves are being trapped in this filter. This is the ring filters. So the fertilization unit, this is the tanks or the equipment that apply the fertilizers to the system, and it is applied by different elements. For example, for a pump, for an equipment like Venturis, or for starting a pump directly. And this is the Silema control, and this is an equipment very important nowadays in most of the farms that use the control watering system. And you can see here a different picture of the panel of control of the Silem system. And this is a equipment apply completely equipment installed in a storage, and you can see the filter equipment, fertilizer tanks, also the apply of the fertilizer, and this is the programmer. And this is another view of the filter unit of the filters, another view of the unit of filters and apply of the fertilizer. Also, you can see in this image the storage of the fertilizer. This is the storage of water. Also, in some parts of the center of the republic, they need to storage the water to give some treatment to obtain a better result in the crops. This is the fertilizers, and this is the programmer. For example, this is the tank fertilizer, and this is a very equilibrate ordinate tubes for the application of the water to the crops. So this is the different equipment that I want to talk to you. I hope that you can enjoy these pictures, and I think this is everything for today. Thank you for your attention, and I will see you the next class. Have a nice days. Thank you. Thank you to you.